Hello there, Little Masters, and welcome to another weekly episode of the Prancing Pony Podcast, where once again we get a chance to see little Bilbo Baggins take matters into his own hands.
He's finally going to do something around here. West to Hall, my friends. I'm Sean Marchese, the real-life Lord of the Mark, and I'm here with the man of the West, the Daein to my Thrain, Alan Sisto.
I like that one. Folks, we are getting to Chapter 16 tonight, A Thief in the Night. And although it's a short chapter, we're going to give it the full prancing pony, because I didn't prepare my effects tonight.
Your
full
soundboard
prancing
there.
pony podcast treatment, because there's a lot of good stuff there.
And it's also going to finally reunite Bilbo and us with an old friend. But before all that happens, Alan, what are we starting off with today?
Well, today we're bringing you another installment of The North Wing.
Just like the North Wing at the Prancing Pony Inn, which had a room or two made special for hobbits, we've got some room especially for some of our listeners to give us a chance to get to know them.
Rooms at the North Wing are hard to come by, so only our patrons at the Elrond's Honorarium and Círdan's Contributions tiers are eligible. So if you'd like to be one of the next patrons to join us, be sure to check out patreon.com/prancingponypod.
Yes, and please do. We do have quite a few names on our guest list already, so we'll be stopping by the North Wing every few weeks for now. But believe me when I say we're happy to make more room available if necessary.
That is true. Well, now tonight, this is really unique. Let's welcome our two guests to the North Wing tonight, Carolyn and Mark Jablow.
Hi.
Hi, Alan. Hi, Sean.
Hi, and welcome back.
Yeah.
And welcome back, both of you, to the Prancing Pony Podcast. Our listeners may remember both of you from the most recent Questions After Nightfall installment, and we're really glad to have both of you back, so thank you. Why don't we go ahead and jump into the questions? We'll start by having each of you tell us a little bit about yourselves. Where are you from? What do you do? That sort of thing.
Just the basics, huh?
Yeah. Just your life story, you know.
There you go, in 3 minutes or less.
Yeah.
Well, probably a lot shorter than that. But, well, Mark Jablow here. I am from New York City. I currently live with my wife and my two dogs in Louisiana, where I serve in the U.S. Air Force. So I'm a military officer.
Oh,
Excellent. Thank you for your service.
thank you indeed for your service.
Thank you. I've been serving in the military 26 years.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
And not sure what else to say. I've a large number of hobbies, one of which is running, which means I do a lot of podcasts when I'm running.
Ah, very good.
Which is
Nice.
one of the ways I found you.
Excellent. Carolyn, what about you?
Well, let's see. I've been traveling with my husband for the last 26 years around the country and around the world. I used to be a vet tech.
Oh, wow.
And right now I'm not doing anything, really. I have no actual employment.
Well, you still do things. You just don't do them for money.
I still do things.
That's what matters.
Not unpaid.
There you go. Well, let's see. When and how did you each first discover Tolkien's works? After that, kind of give us a little bit about your experience in terms of what was your experience like reading Tolkien's books and why do you keep coming back? And then finally, this is kind of a three-parter. Since this is the first time we've had a married couple join us on the North Wing, we're all curious to know if it's something you discovered together, or did one of you draw the other into your obsession?
Okay, I'll start that with this one. So my brother had copies of the Ballantine edition of the Fellowship and the Two Towers and the Return of the King, of which I stumbled upon his book collection. And so I know I read the Lord of the Rings before I read The Hobbit. And found myself enjoying it so much, I set myself up to read them once per year, and I did that for a number of years.
Awesome.
That sounds familiar.
And
Yeah, been there.
just adored it. And then I think I found the Silmarillion in college and read that back in the mid-'80s. And at that time, I was involved in Dungeons and Dragons, all the various
RPGs.
Oh, yes.
that are out there. But
That also sounds familiar, yeah.
and just adored it. There was the Middle Earth role-playing game.
Oh, yeah. Merp.
Which I actually played very little of it, but I found that the volumes, the modules that came out, like Shelob's Lair and a few of the others, just the detail that were in those were exquisite, and there's just such a joy to read. And so that's how I got into it.
Okay.
And I think I know how you got into it, Carolyn.
Right. So when Mark and I first started dating, I asked him what his favorite book was, and he told me about Lord of the Rings, and I had not read any of them. So I started with The Hobbit and then went on, and I really liked them.
Yeah.
So I have to say, reading The Hobbit for the first time, I wasn't crazy about it, but the Fellowship of the Ring really, really drew me in.
Yeah.
And then, we have the Rob Inglis audio books.
Oh, yeah. Those are excellent.
We have the Silmarillion on audio. We have the BBC podcasts.
Yeah, the broadcast
the
of the
ensemble.
kind of the radio theater.
The dramatization, yeah.
Exactly. So on long trips or anything like that, we'd always just put it in. And so we're very familiar with those sorts of things, but now we're wanting to get into, other things like or Morgoth's Ring. Yeah.
Some of the histories of Middle Earth,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's
That's
great.
awesome.
That is really awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think you've actually almost sort of answered my next question. I was going to say, since you're both Tolkien fans, do you have any fun couples Tolkien activity stories to share? Couple of examples. Alan and his wife once read the books out loud together. My wife used to listen to me reading the books to our children when they were newborns. I guess you've already talked about putting the audiobooks on for long trips. Anything else?
Well, should we talk about Matamata?
Sure, absolutely.
So I guess it was 2012 in November, we went down to New Zealand and got a set of Hobbiton. And I think we were there like maybe 2 weeks or less than a month before the opening of the first Hobbit movie.
Yeah.
I think it was just about to come out, and so they had built a replica of the Green Dragon down by the lake in Hobbiton.
Oh, what a moment!
But we couldn't go in because they hadn't opened it yet.
Yeah.
But we have pictures of ourselves running around the lanes on Bagshot Row. And
what a beautiful location!
That's super cool. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a great trip. But that's just one week out of our lives.
But a memorable week, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I should put that one on my list.
We also went to the mill that the town where Tolkien grew up and visited the mill.
Sarah Hole Mill.
Sarah Hole Mill.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been there as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Oh, that's
What
awesome.
a neat opportunity.
And then also in New Zealand was the Tongariro Pass, where they filmed parts of Mordor.
Yeah.
Which was real neat.
That's great. I'm sure you don't have a million pictures from that trip or from both of those trips.
Yeah.
That's great.
We'll have to see if we can get a couple of those. Maybe put a couple in our show notes for folks to take a look
We could
at.
do this.
That'd be great.
could-
That'd be
that.
wonderful.
Yeah.
And I guess the other sort of couples thing is I also do some crafting.
Oh, okay.
And I do some cross stitch, and I saw that there was a map of Middle Earth. And it's like, honey, do you want me to do this map of Middle Earth for you? Sure.
Well, yeah.
Aw, that's
And
cool.
so I've been, it's kind of for me as well now.
Sure.
And so I've been working cross stitch for the last 2.5 years.
I took a look at the pages and I did the math, and I think it's 502,000 stitches.
It's really good.
Wow.
And she's about two-thirds or three-quarters of the way done now.
That's
That's a
amazing.
massive, massive project. You're going to have to, post some in-progress images
can
to the
do that.
podcast page. Share them with our listeners. That'd be great. Any Tolkien goals you'd like to share, like maybe tracking down a special book or going to a conference or a moot or something like that? Anything along those lines that you want to, still have on your list?
We had hoped to be able to get out to Mythmoot. It turned out I'll be on a work trip all of June, so it's not going to work this year.
Yeah, maybe next year. Yeah.
Yeah. Honey, anything?
Yeah, it would be nice to go to a moot. I can't think of anything else.
No.
Yeah, we've been to the Bird and
right.
Baby.
Oh wow.
Oh, wow.
yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's
You've
so
already,
cool.
You've already done a lot of the things that are on some of
Yeah.
our lists. Yeah.
The things that are on our bucket list. I'm like, well, check for them. Check for them.
Right. Yeah. You guys are checking all the boxes already.
That's awesome.
That's great. Well, I guess, what do you think, Alan? Time to move to our lightning round?
I think so. This should be fun.
All right, so we've got some quick questions and answers for you both.
These
Carolyn
are
and
lightning
Mark.
round questions, so no hedging your bets here.
But we'll ask them really quickly, and then we'll give you each a chance to answer.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite character?
Faramir is my favorite character of all the Legendarium.
There you go.
Can't argue with that one. Mark?
I knew I liked you.
I adore Samwise.
Yeah.
Can't argue with that one either.
Yeah.
Nice.
Favorite individual scene or moment in the entire Legendarium?
Oh.
Okay, the language that's used when, and I'm going to get this wrong, where the Balrog is trotting the banner in the mire of somebody's blood.
Oh, yeah. I'm
trying to remember.
It's Fingon, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that
and it's
Battle of Number
Gothmog.
Tears?
Lord of Balrog.
I think so.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is my favorite scene. But it's the language.
The mire of his blood. It's such a brutal.
And the light that's right after the light that sprang from his helm as it was cloven.
Yes,
which is one
that
of
is correct.
That's one of the give me chills scenes.
It really is.
And for me, I think it has to be the gates of the hidden city.
Oh wow! Yes.
I section late,
Yeah.
just only a few years ago. I forget where I found it, but probably a book my wife sent me when I was traveling, and I just couldn't put it down, and I was so wishing there was more to it. It was just,
It ends
you're
right
so
as it's
not
getting
alone in
going.
that.
Yeah.
I know. We got through the gates and we're done.
And then it's over. Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
We're kind of diverging from our lightning plan, Sean. Let's get back on the lightning track.
Let's get it back on lightning track. Favorite Tolkien artist or Tolkien work of art?
Well, we just got the Atlas of Middle Earth, and
Karen Fonstad,
and we just started. We couldn't stop laughing how much every page was just another something amazing jumping out at us.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have a lot of Tolkien art that isn't drawn by Tolkien, I guess.
Yeah, that's fair.
But the maps in here and seeing the detail that's been drawn out is exquisite.
Yeah, it really is.
It's a fantastic book. Yeah.
All right. Other than Tolkien, who's your favorite author or maybe a favorite book other than anything he wrote?
Pride and Prejudice by...
wonderful choice.
Jane Austen.
Jane Austen.
Haywood?
On the spot, Mark.
Yeah, I know. If it doesn't have to be fiction, Sir Patrick Moore for the astronomy books that I read. That's what I studied in college is astronomy.
Very cool.
And I just fell in love with the field was reading Patrick Moore.
Okay. Well, that's counts.
Fantastic. That's
doesn't
a great
have,
answer.
Doesn't have to be fiction. Well, those are some great answers.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carolyn and Mark. We really, really enjoyed having you here in the North Wing, but I think it's time for all of us to head back to the common room and join the rest of the listeners.
Thanks again to both of you, and we sincerely hope to have you back for the next Questions After Nightfall.
We certainly do. And now, back to the common room for the rest of our show.
And thanks not only to our guests, Carolyn and Mark, but thanks also to our patrons and to the internet for making that segment possible.
Well, and making our podcast in general possible. But...
Yeah, no kidding, right?
And now, on with the discussion.
All right.
I'm going to start this one out at, wait for it,
Oh,
the
here
very
we go.
beginning, because it is a very good place to start. I'm going to go ahead and pick up right there at the top. Now the days passed slowly and wearily. I should probably set the stage just as a reminder. They're now under siege, right? I mean,
right. Yes.
Yeah, I'm starting at the beginning because it's a very good place to start. But the end of last chapter will just, they are now under siege.
They were under siege.
The armies of the men and elves are outside the gate that is now a wall.
The wall.
With nothing but arrow slits in it. So, and they're eating mostly
And they've
cram.
got nothing but cram to eat.
Yeah, which sticks in the throat, like Bilbo said. So now that we've set the stage, we'll go back to the text. Many of the dwarves spent their time piling and ordering the treasure. And now Thorin spoke of the Arkenstone of Thrain and bade them eagerly to look for it in every corner. For the Arkenstone of my father, he said, is worth more than a river of gold in itself. And to me, it is beyond price. That stone of all the treasure I name unto myself, and I will be avenged on anyone who finds it and withholds it. Bilbo heard these words, and he grew afraid, wondering what would happen if the stone was found, wrapped in an old bundle of tattered oddments that he used as a pillow. All the same, he did not speak of it, For as the weariness of the days grew heavier, the beginnings of a plan had come into his little head.
All I can think of is Baldric from Blackadder. I have a cunning plan.
And all I can think of is when he says, I will be avenged, I just think, by Grapthar's hammer, by the sons of Corvan, I will be avenged.
Really avenged.
Lots of good stuff here in a very, very short time frame. Isn't this interesting? What are the dwarves doing? They're counting their treasure.
Because, it's what you do when you're not sure where your next meal's going to come from.
You're just stacking the coins, it's the same as it was when I counted them yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, really. I guess they're taking inventory.
Well, it's probably taking a long time to count it all. They probably didn't get through it all in the first day.
No, probably not. They're probably inventorying. Okay, let's put all the cups over there, all the platters over here. I want the coins over in that corner.
Where's the Arkenstone pile? Do we find any Arkenstones? No, just checking. All right.
Just want to make sure.
It can't hurt to ask.
No, can't hurt. Because that one, I named that to myself.
Right.
I named that unto myself. I named that unto myself.
There you go. See? The Melkor comparisons.
Yeah, I know. You're right. It's one more Melkor comparison. Yeah. In fairness, he really could do that. I mean, this is, a special stone. He has the right.
It is, and he is the king. And
yeah.
Yeah.
Bilbo grew afraid. Yeah, probably I would too. If Thorin's saying, I'm going to kill anybody who has it. Notice he's saying this to people that he spent the last several months journeying with. Is there something troubling about that to you?
That is quite troubling.
Me.
Yeah. I mean, arguably, anybody who is actually withholding it at this point is not his friend anymore. They're betraying him, and I think that's what he's thinking. But you're right. It is very troubling that he's going straight to, I'm going to kill them. And they're not going to get a chance to explain themselves.
No. This isn't like, well, I'm going to just negate the 1/14th treasure or something like that.
Right.
I'm going to be avenged. This is, he's threatening death to his loyal companions.
Yeah.
If any of them happen to
who got him
keep
here.
This. Yeah.
Who helped get him here. And Bilbo clearly he could not possibly plead ignorance at this point, even if he could before.
Yeah, he definitely can't now.
He knows full well what the Arkenstone is. He knows how badly Thorin wants it.
And that makes what he does next unbelievably incredible. I mean, it's the risk that he takes is
extremely brave. Yeah.
But I couldn't help but compare Thorin's willingness to kill his kin. I mean, some of these are his relatives. If one of them happens to have the Arkenstone, he'd avenge himself. Compare that with just a couple chapters ago. Smaug was ready to, he was on the warpath. He was smashing things up. And he says, get inside, Mr. Baggins, and Balin, and you too, Fili and Keely. The dragon shan't have all of us. There's Thorin at his most noble. And here's Thorin saying, I'm going to kill you.
Just a couple of chapters, he's degenerated that much, I guess.
The dragon sickness, yeah. Really.
Wow, that's a really interesting catch.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such a drastic shift.
Very much so. It has to be the dragon sickness, and I know we've talked about it before. We've kind of, I wouldn't say we've downplayed it, but we talked about the fact that it was a bit exaggerated in the movies. But there really is something here, isn't there?
There is. Oh, there definitely is. I mean, sure, it was overplayed in the films. I mean, especially the whole idea of that, molten gold and wrapping around him in some sort of weird psychedelic dream. But I mean, that one I didn't get at all. But there really is a lot here.
Yeah,
there is a lot for the film to plan, and I get it. I mean, trying to show that sort of mental kind of the overwhelming of your own intentions, your own will, your own volition being drowned out by this dragon sickness. It's hard to cinematize that, if you will.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be too hard on it, but yeah, there's a lot more here than you might think in the text of the book if you're looking.
The other thing it reminds me of, and we won't spend too much time on this, but since we talked about Feanor in the last chapter, the last episode, it reminds me of the Oath of the Feanorians about the Silmarils. They vowed to pursue with vengeance and hatred to the ends of the world, Vala, demon, elf, or man as yet unborn, or any creature great or small, good or evil, blah, 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 whoso should hold or take or keep a Silmaril from their possession.
Yeah. Wow. And we bring the everlasting dark upon us if it...
Yeah. If we fail on that, and that included their kin, and that included friends, allies. So Yeah.
Basically, his whole point is, none of you are any more valuable to me than the men or elves outside.
Yeah.
I would kill you in a heartbeat if you
a good
keep
point.
this from me.
Yeah. Wow.
But Bilbo has a plan. I love that last line. I just said that little line, but that I kind of gave away my point. The beginnings of a plan had come into his little head. Just a little reminder that Bilbo is small, This reminder that he's not some great hero, as if we needed that reminder. But I just think there's a reason he threw that word in there.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Diminutive.
Bilbo is small, and we might not expect a whole lot from him. I mean, if we've been paying attention, we should expect quite a lot from him at this point. But yeah, he still is. There's more to him than meets the eye.
Yeah, and I think he's setting him up for what we're going to see later in the chapter.
Yeah, definitely.
That big heart, little head. Is kind of what I'm
right.
thinking here.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
But I'm going to go ahead and have you read the next little section here.
Okay.
Oh, you get to read more Raven dialogue.
I get Roach again. All right. But they cannot reach the mountain unmarked, said Roach, and I fear lest there be battle in the valley. I do not call this counsel good. Though they are a grim folk, they are not likely to overcome the host that besets you. And even if they did so, what will you gain? Winter and snow is hastening behind them. How shall you be fed without the friendship and goodwill of the lands about you? The treasure is likely to be your death, though the dragon is no more. But Thorin was not moved. Winter and snow will bite both men and elves, he said, and they may find their dwelling in the waste grievous to bear. With my friends behind them, and winter upon them, they will perhaps be in softer mood to parley with.
Wow. Unclear on the concept. I mean, he really misses Roach's point completely.
Yeah.
This isn't about the parlay. This is about even if they were victorious, even if the armies left,
this kingdom will not survive without.
You can't survive
allies.
the winter because you can't grow food in Erebor.
Yep.
You need the friendship of these people about you.
Yeah.
And he reminds him that the friendship and goodwill of these lands is crucial to surviving your winters.
Finally, for the first time, Roach actually speaks up about the council.
Yeah, I don't call this council good.
But remember the last time, he would not say, I won't say whether this is good or bad.
Yeah.
Now he's gotten a little bolder. Which implies a lot. Either he's gotten bolder or the council's just gotten that much worse, and I think it's a little of both.
I think it is a little bit of both. Like, okay, great. Now there's war on the way. I mean, we've got 500 dwarves, which, is enough to cause some damage, but not enough to actually lift the siege or break the siege.
Right.
And there's going to be a fight, and this is not a good thing.
Right.
And that's interesting because here we got a carrion bird who doesn't want this battle. I mean, really.
That's a very good point. When a carrion bird tells you, I really don't want any dead bodies lying around.
You should probably listen, Thorin.
You should probably listen. Oh, that's too funny. Yeah.
And of course,
again, the wisest one among them, I think, Roach
always.
is.
Yeah.
For the last couple of chapters.
In every scene he's here, he's the one. So, winter and snow is hastening behind them. So do you want to go ahead and say the line?
Winter is coming.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure we got that in there.
Since I'm the more Game of Thrones savvy of the two of us.
You really are, as we found out. Well, we're not allowed to talk about that yet, are we?
No, we're not. We probably should edit that.
Shh. No, we'll leave it in. We'll just not say anything more.
All right.
And leave that little teaser about something.
Fair enough. Yes, we found out recently that Sean has Game of Thrones knowledge.
He does, more than I would have expected, which it turned out to be a good thing.
He did.
Now, speaking of good things, they need. We talked about the friendship and goodwill of the lands. They need that. And remember, this is what made Erebor a success before.
Right.
If we go back all the way back to chapter 1, and there's so much in that chapter that we constantly come back to. Last chapter, it was the song. Now we're coming back to this quote. This was Thorin explaining things to Bilbo. Mm-hmm. And he says, "They built the merry town of Dale there in those days. Kings used to send for our smiths and reward even the least skillful most richly. Fathers would beg us to take their sons as apprentices and pay us handsomely, especially in food supplies, which we never bothered to grow or find for ourselves. Altogether, those were good days for us, and the poorest of us had money to spend and to lend, and leisure to make beautiful things just for the fun of it. Not to speak of the most marvelous and magical toys, the like of which is not to be found in the world nowadays. So my grandfather's halls became full of armor and jewels and carvings and cups, and the toy market of Dale was the wonder of the North. Yeah.
See, so those good days were the result of
that alliance,
of
or
that
at least of that
alliance.
friendship, yeah.
And they become paid handsomely in food supplies, which we never bothered to grow or find for ourselves. This is the key to so much of Roak's counsel here.
Yeah.
You guys are not going to eat, let alone, forget the siege. But, even after that, if you don't have friends, what are you guys
and
going
where
to eat?
will your and where will your ongoing income come from? Because
true.
The kings aren't going to send for your smiths anymore if
That's
you're
true.
killing
Yeah.
them.
That's true.
And those fathers aren't going to beg you to take their sons as apprentices.
You're basically just going to spend down the gold that you already have as opposed
That's
to
right.
continuing to build.
To build an economy. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. And yet, Thorin is just utterly unmoved. He really thinks that somehow this is going to work out, that 500 dwarves, which, let's be honest, is a pretty sizable
500
force.
dwarves is significant for sure.
Yeah, that's especially battle-hardened dwarves. We'll get to that concept later. But, yeah, I mean, he's not thinking long-term. He's thinking short-term only.
Yeah.
He's barely able to see the end of his nose here on this one.
Well, and again, I think I go back to those sins of Melkor. He's all too happy to isolate himself from those around him. He is trusting to his own might and his own dominance.
Yep.
And the dominance of his people to get him out of this.
And to not listening to counsel.
Listen to counsel. Yeah.
We were talking about that last episode, and I thought about it and didn't say anything because it wasn't really relevant to Melkor. But I just kept thinking about how people don't listen to good counsel a lot of the time. What was our ongoing joke for the entire first stage? Nobody ever listens to
Melian. Yeah. Melian always has the right answer, and nobody ever listens to her.
Seriously. And here you've got this wise raven that's been around and that remembers what his father taught him.
Yeah.
And you're not listening to him.
Yeah.
That's not a good sign.
Nope.
But Bilbo, with that little plan or I should say, the plan that came into his little head, not the little plan that came into his head, because there is a difference.
I'm still calling it a cunning plan. I have a cunning plan.
Cunning plan. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up exactly where you left off. That night, Bilbo made up his mind. The sky was black and moonless. As soon as it was full dark, he went to a corner of an inner chamber just within the gate, and drew from his bundle a rope, and also the Arkenstone wrapped in a rag. Then he climbed to the top of the wall. Only Bomber was there, for it was his turn to watch, and the dwarves kept only one watchman at a time. "It is mighty cold," said Bomber. "I wish we could have a fire up here as they have in the camp." "It is warm enough inside," said Bilbo. "I dare say, but I'm bound here till midnight," grumbled the fat dwarf. "A sorry business altogether. Not that I venture to disagree with Thorin, may his beard grow ever longer, yet he was ever a dwarf with a stiff neck." "Not as stiff as my legs," said Bilbo. "I am tired of stairs and stone passages. I would give a good deal for the feel of grass at my toes." "I would give a good deal for the feel of a strong drink in my throat, and for a soft bed after a good supper." "I can't give you those while the siege is going on, but it is long since I watched, and I will take your turn for you if you like. There is no sleep in me tonight." "You're a good fellow, Mr. Baggins, and I will take your offer kindly. If there should be anything to note, rouse me first, mind you. I'll lie in the inner chamber to the left, not far away." "Off you go," said Bilbo. "I'll wake you at midnight, and you can wake the next watchman." As soon as Bomber had gone, Bilbo put on his ring, fastened his rope, slipped down over the wall, and was gone.
What an exchange between these two.
It really is. It really, really is. I mean, it seems like it's kind of just a space filler, and it's Bilbo trying to get an opportunity to get away. But there's a lot really said here.
Yeah.
First off, I want to observe something that we saw earlier that has to do with Bilbo's plans. Remember in Thranduil's halls, we kind of got an idea, and certainly, once you've read the book 18,000 times, but as a first-time reader, you're not really told.
You're not told exactly what he's doing. That's true, yeah.
That's right. And here it's the same thing. We get the beginnings of something, but we're not told what the plan is. We just know that he's made up his mind.
Yeah,
we don't know what he's made up his mind to do, not yet.
Right.
but we are not. So we're not told that. So I thought that was interesting.
That is very interesting.
Yeah,
it's kind of like the heist in a
It
heist
is.
movie. You don't find
Yeah.
out exactly what the heist is until you see the
it's
little bits and pieces
until
of
it's
it.
in action, right?
Yeah.
You see the little pieces come together, and that's what's happening here.
Yeah. You know it involves the Arkenstone because
Yes.
he brings
Yeah.
that with him, although I suppose he probably wouldn't want to leave it behind.
Well, no, it is his 14th share of the treasure, even if he's never coming back. But
Yeah.
I also think it's interesting and worth noting, even though we're not going to talk about it much now, that he wrapped the Arkenstone in a rag.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that a little bit.
Got a
more
little
later.
bit on this later on, yeah.
Yeah. So, but let's get on to this conversation with Bomber. I mean, it is friendly. I think he really does care about Bomber. He's mentioned as kind of an ally of him several times. But really, it's ultimately deceptive, isn't it?
He is deceptive, yeah.
Yeah.
He's basically manipulating Bomber into going inside and and giving him the watch, quote unquote, so that he'll be left alone. Yeah.
Yeah. But there are some telling
And
things in here. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Which one do you want to talk about first? Because there's one that I just picked up on while you were reading, and it's about halfway through.
I'll start with the one that I wanted to talk about because I think I know which one you might have caught because I kind of caught something too. But I know that initially I wanted to comment on the fact that Bilbo really is longing for home. He wants the feel of grass at his toes.
That's true, yeah.
Oh, man.
Tired of stairs and stone passages.
Stone and more stone. I just want to be where there's grass between my toes.
Yeah.
And that's that comfort thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
comfort
Yeah,
right
we'll
there.
see that a couple of times this chapter.
Yeah. What about you?
I love the "You are a good fellow, Mr. Baggins."
I do too.
That's really cool. That's the one I just picked up on when you were reading it just now. It's a reminder that Bilbo is a good person, despite the fact that he is lying to his friend right now, and he is about to, let's face it, he's about to betray his friends.
Yeah.
Well,
at least
cool.
Thorin. I'm not sure that I'm not sure I'd qualify it as betrayal of the other dwarves, but it certainly betrays Thorin and breaks.
It certainly betrays Thorin, but the fact that the other dwarves are mostly supporting Thorin and everything he's doing right now.
Yeah,
I think,
from their perspective, they'd see it as a full betrayal. You're right.
Even Bomber, for his part, he won't openly disagree with Thorin. I love the fact he points out he was ever a dwarf with a stiff neck. He knows he's being stubborn, but he still won't openly disagree with him.
Yeah, and here's a dwarf noticing the stubbornness and the stiff neck of Thorin.
Yeah, no kidding. Right.
That's pot, kettle, pot.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, a dwarf with a stiff neck, that means he's stubborn even as dwarves go. So
yeah, which is really saying something.
I did notice. No, it's actually in the next. It's in the next part that we haven't read yet. The fact that the rest of the dwarves are not actually sleeping. They're all inside, busy with Thorin.
Yeah,
and that was something that I only picked up on in this reading. But I might be skipping ahead. I'm not sure if you have anything else on the passage you just read.
No, not really. Just the fact that now he's put on the ring and he's gone. We're reminded once again he's now going to be invisible.
Yeah. Well, going back to what I was just saying, I think the fact that I always just kind of assume they're all sleeping. That Bomber
I would have thought that
awake,
too. This is night. He's the night watchman. Mm-hmm. But no, they're down there, counting their treasure and looking for the Arkenstone. Really.
So this is a bold move on Bilbo's part.
It's a real bold move. Yeah.
Very, very bold.
The text tells us it was unlikely that even Feely or Keely would come out on the wall until it was their turn, but not impossible.
It wasn't impossible.
They're not sleeping. Yeah.
Right. He could have been found out a lot sooner than he.
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't found out, but yeah, he could have been found out if somebody had just walked outside.
Boy, what a disaster that would have been.
There's that luck again.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and have you read the next little bit here as Bilbo gets away.
Okay. It was very dark. And the road, after a while, when he left the newly made path and climbed down towards the lower course of the stream, was strange to him. At last he came to the bend where he had to cross the water, if he was to make for the camp as he wished. The bed of the stream was there shallow, but already broad, and fording it in the dark was not easy for the little hobbit. He was nearly across when he missed his footing on a round stone and fell into the cold water with a splash. He had barely scrambled out on the far bank, shivering and spluttering, when up came elves in the gloom with bright lanterns, and searched for the cause of the noise. "That was no fish," one said. "There is a spy about. Hide your lights. They will help him more than us, if it is that queer little creature that is said to be their servant." "Servant indeed," snorted Bilbo. And in the middle of his snort he sneezed loudly, and the elves immediately gathered towards the sound. "Let's have a light," he said. "I am here if you want me." And he slipped off his ring and popped from behind a rock. They seized him quickly, in spite of their surprise. "Who are you? Are you the dwarves' hobbit? What are you doing? How did you get so far past our sentinels?" they asked one after another. "I am Mr. Bilbo Baggins," he answered, "companion of Thorin, if you want to know. I know your king well by sight, though perhaps he doesn't know me to look at. But Bard will remember me, and it is Bard I particularly want to see."
That is interesting. And it's interesting that Bard would remember him, and that he knows that Bard would remember him. Must have been some interaction while they were in Lake Town.
Yeah, there must have been.
Yeah.
And, obviously Bilbo and all of Thorin's company were, celebrities in Lake Town while they were there.
That's true. That's true. They were all, everybody's Instagram feed was filled with those stupid dwarves and Bilbo,
Right.
for like 3 weeks.
Hashtag King Under the Mountain. Hashtag return. Hashtag River Run Gold.
Yeah, River Run Gold. There you go. Oh, man. I couldn't help but remember the moment when he almost got caught with the raft elves.
Oh, yeah.
With the raftmen, the wood elf raftmen.
Sneezing, the explosive sneeze.
Yeah, and having to sneak off with food and try not to get caught, and all the problems that for a stealthy guy, he's not as quiet as we'd like.
No, that's true.
That's the thing.
It's those allergies, man. Those are the things that always trip him up. He's always sneezing.
Yeah, that is true. His constitution's pretty low. He immediately picks up a cold the minute he gets in the water.
Yep.
Every time he showers, he comes out sneezing. That's not helpful.
Yep. But what courage, fording the stream, it's shallow but broad, and it's not easy. He's putting forth a lot of effort here,
He is.
And he's brave, he's bold. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, the boldness really shows up when he decides, I'm here if you want me.
Yeah.
You wonder, well, then why did he even bother keeping the ring on? But I think he realized wisely that if he had been seen from far away, he just would have been shot on sight.
Yeah.
And at least by, getting a chance to get amidst them, he can just say, hey, just take me to your leader,
And plus points for showmanship.
Oh, yeah.
Just
A
kind of
plus right here.
Appearing out of nowhere. Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
He doesn't like the servant thing,
No,
though, does he?
He doesn't, does he? I love that. Servant indeed.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. And, he just lets himself be captured. Clearly that was his intention.
Mm-hmm. He's honest about his identity.
Yes.
He's quite dignified, actually. Mr. Bilbo Baggins, companion of Thorin.
Yeah.
As in, not the dwarves' hobbit, not their servant.
Yeah, companion of Thorin, not servant.
Yeah. And as you said, take me to your leader. I want to go see Bard.
Yeah. Take me to your leader. We mean you no harm.
Yep.
So, they question him. They're what do you want to talk to Bard about? And he's like, none of your business.
Right.
I do love that. But he does imply, he doesn't imply, tells them, look, we don't have much time. I've got an hour or two.
Yeah. If you want to get out of here as much as I do, please take me to Bard. I love that.
That really is point. Like, you want to get home too, right?
Yeah.
Where all that really cool wine is in barrels beneath your...
Yeah, no kidding.
Assuming that you're allowed to drink that, since that's probably for the king's table.
That's the king's special stash.
Yeah, the special stash. The stuff that gets the warden and
and the butler drunk.
Completely drunk.
Right.
Probably because they drank it out of gallon jugs, but
They did say those cups were way too big for that stuff.
I'm picturing them actually drinking out of bottles like wrapped in brown paper bags. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's probably not very nice for me to think of the elves in that way.
No, that's okay. They deserve it. In that particular moment, they deserve it.
They do. Those two did deserve it. They were
Galleon.
total lushes.
Give me another bottle.
Good stuff. Well, I'm going to go ahead and pick up then, since they only had an hour or two to spare. That is how it came about that some 2 hours after his escape from the gate, Bilbo was sitting beside a warm fire in front of a large tent, and there sat two, gazing curiously at him, both the Elvenking and Bard. A hobbit in elvish armor, partly wrapped in an old blanket, was something new to them. Really, Bilbo was saying in his best business manner, things are impossible. Personally, I'm tired of the whole affair. I wish I was back in the West, in my own home, where folk are more reasonable. But I have an interest in this matter, 1/14th share to be precise, according to a letter, which fortunately I believe I have kept." He drew from a pocket in his old jacket, which he still wore over his mail, crumpled and much folded, Thorin's letter that had been put under the clock on his mantelpiece in May. By the way, I'll just digress and say it was April.
I think, was it Anderson or Rateliff, I think?
I think both of them pointed
out that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had another moment like that earlier in the book, too.
We did, yeah. That's why the timeline's a little hard to work out, because Tolkien seems to kind of lose the thread. Yeah.
It's like he forgot about that one. But so, Bilbo, a share in the profits, mind you, he went on. I am aware of that. Personally, I am only too ready to consider all your claims carefully and deduct what is right from the total before putting in my own claim. However, you don't know Thorin Oakenshield as well as I do now. I assure you, he is quite ready to sit on a heap of gold and starve as long as you sit here. Well, let him, said Bard. Such a fool deserves to starve. Well, he does have a point.
He does have a very good point there. You may eat that if you will. I still love the words of the Herald from last time.
I know, that's so phenomenal. We leave you to your gold.
Yeah.
Have a snack.
Yeah.
He's very Bagginsy here with the letter, isn't he? It totally reminds me of Baggins.
He is.
This is not the Took side. This is the Baggins side.
He is, although I would actually argue that I think there's more than just the Baggins here, because one thing that I'm kind of drawn to is the fact that he's a hobbit in elvish armor, partly wrapped in an old blanket.
Yeah.
You know, he's got his old coat, or his old jacket, rather,
wrapped
over
around the mithril.
his mail. And he's broken into the camp in a very bold and cunning and Tookish fashion. But now he's
that
sitting
part's
here,
Tookish, no doubt, yeah.
And now he's sitting here just kind of like talking
business.
very primly about the contract, which is very Bagginsy. I kind of feel like this might be the time when Bilbo has finally achieved a balance between the Baggins and the Took.
Very good point, really.
I think he might have figured out how to be both at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, because clearly, like you said, the actual escape and fording of the river and all that, that's all Took. I mean, that's...
Yeah.
There's no Baggins in the world is going to ford a river.
Right, not at all, no.
You know, but he's the Baggins aspect of him holds on to the contract.
Yeah.
Pulls it out right there. Yeah.
And the whole things are really, things are impossible. I mean, it's
so Bagginsy.
It sounds like C-3PO almost, but
it does, doesn't it? You have expected to be, I'm a protocol droid. Of course, I speak that language.
Right, exactly. So yeah, I think there's
binary is like a second language to me, sir.
Good old 3PO.
Good old, yeah.
I always get 3PO in those personality quizzes, like which Star Wars character are you? And I always get 3PO. I'm like, I don't speak that many languages.
No, I know, that's the thing. I don't. If it's on languages, I'm never going to get C-3PO. I'll get some nonverbal guy. R2-D2 basically.
Right. Beep boop.
Probably get that grunt with the bad, prosthetics at the beginning of Return of the Jedi.
the ones with the
that's going
axe.
to take him to
the Gamorrean guards in Jabba's palace. Yep.
Yeah. What was I going to say?
I don't know.
Totally threw me,
great.
dude. Thanks a lot, man. No, you'd already talked about the fact that he's wearing the armor and then wrapped in an old blanket, and it's absolutely stunning to the Elvenking and Bard. I mean, first of all, he's a hobbit, which is something neither of them have seen.
Right.
Bard had seen one recently.
Bard has seen one recently, yeah, but
they're
not that familiar with them.
No, he was probably the first and only hobbit that they'd ever seen.
I'm sure.
Bilbo's statement that he wishes he was back in the West in his own home is a very explicit statement of his desire for that truth to be.
Missing that comfort.
Man,
yeah.
That's kind of gone away lately, We haven't seen that as much as we used to.
That's true. That's a good point.
I think he's just fatigued now. He wants this, like we talked about. Now that the dragon's dead, this is over. I want to go home now.
Yeah.
Because he'd kind of gotten past that point where he was constantly thinking of home.
He had, and I wonder if that correlates to the fact that he was at his most Tookish when he was in the dragon's lair, when he was riddling with Smaug, and he kind of pushed things too far. He got a little overbold.
He got a little over-Tookish.
A little over-Tookish, and he had to kind of pull it back a little bit. I wonder if that's what we're seeing here. He's pulled it back. He's kind of found that balance a little more, and now he is sitting here in mail, wishing he was home.
in Mithril, right? I mean, this is...
Yeah, right.
This,
Yeah.
I'm sure the Elvenking is looking at him like,
Where did you get
"Wow,
that?
man, those are some fancy duds."
Check out those threads, man.
I mean, you're lucky that I'm bigger than you because I would want to take your armor.
Yeah.
Because my hoard's not big enough.
Yeah. I want that for my son. His name is Legolas. He's a little kid.
Yeah, his name, you will have to find out for yourself.
That's what I was kind of thinking.
Some call him Greenleaf.
His right name, you must figure out for yourself.
His eyes are blue. Wait, brown. No, I forget. What color are his eyes? Oh, goodness.
Man.
Yeah, so, I like that he acknowledges Bard's claim. He's like, look, I'm perfectly happy to consider these claims. I've got no problem with that.
Yeah.
But then he tells them, hey, look, you do not know Thorin like I know Thorin.
Yeah. He's not going to see reason. He's not going to...
No.
This isn't going to work on him.
You need to change your approach. You need to do what he said, which is send the Elvenking home, and Bard, come unarmed and parley. You do that, and Thorin will talk to you.
Yep.
But Bard's a good guy in comparison to Thorin, of course, and Bard's even a good guy in comparison to the Elvenking because at least he has a legitimate claim on the treasure. But Bard isn't a perfectly good guy because even his response here isn't quite what you'd hope. Instead of saying, well, I'll think about that, or
listen to good counsel and let me do what you say.
Yeah, even he says, forget it, I'm not doing
let
that.
him. He deserves to starve. He does have a point.
Yeah, it's not an unreasonable point. I mean, it's nothing like Thorin's response of basically,
But that's not the point. The point shouldn't be, oh, well, he's being a fool, he deserves to starve. The point should be, how can we resolve this?
Right. Everybody here is very concerned with their own rights. Right?
Yeah.
Thorin is claiming that, all this gold is his. And now Bard is claiming that some of it is his. And he may be right, and Thorin may be right about some of his claim. But until we can get past just dealing with what's ours, and instead address the relationship, between these two peoples, it's not going anywhere.
That is a very good point. Yeah, everybody's really good at looking out for themselves, and they really need to be thinking as a community, as a region, as people who are going to be living side by side for the foreseeable future. Yeah,
right. Because now there's no more dragon to bother you. So
right.
Yeah. But so Bilbo goes on to tell. We're not going to read that part, but Bilbo goes on to tell him about Dane and 500 dwarves.
500 grim dwarves. Yeah.
Grim dwarves, which is a word we have seen only used in relation to Bard himself, by the way, until now.
Oh, that's a good catch. Yeah.
Grim-faced, grim-voiced, grim man, and now we've got these guys are grim. You
Grim.
think you're grim?
You think you're grim, Bard? These guys are grim.
I got 500 times of that grim coming, and it's short and stinky.
Their
with
grims
long
have
beard.
grim.
Their grims have grim.
Their grims have grim.
Their beards are grim, man.
That's right. I do like that Bilbo makes a point of mentioning that they're battle-hardened.
Absolutely.
Many of them have experience in the dreadful dwarf and goblin wars. Douglas Anderson has a little footnote here that reminds us about this war. We talked about it a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
But haven't talked about it in a while. But this is that war of the dwarves and orcs. It was 2793 to 2799 of the Third Age.
Okay.
And this is the one that ended with that Battle of Azanulbazar, where Thorin earned the name Oakenshield. His shield was broken. He picked up the oak branch and defended himself. And
that's awesome.
I know, it's a great moment. And Anderson points out that it was actually Dan who slew Azog.
That's right. He was a young stripling or something.
He was a whippersnapper at the time. He was 32.
Wow, that is young for a
prime.
dwarf in war.
Yeah.
My
it feels young for a man in podcasting to me.
But well, yeah. I'd call
I
that
remember
a child.
32 quite fondly.
I barely remember 32. But what I remember of it, it's fond. That's
It was
sure.
great.
It was great all those many years ago. Yeah.
We're old, folks. We're old.
So, interestingly, not surprisingly, when Bilbo says, hey, we got Dan coming with 500 grim dwarves who are battle-hardened, Bard has a response. I'm going to go ahead and let you read from there.
Yep, all right. Why do you tell us this? Are you betraying your friends, or are you threatening us? Asked Bard grimly. My dear Bard, squeaked Bilbo, don't be so hasty. I never met such suspicious folk. I am merely trying to avoid trouble for all concerned. Now I will make you an offer." "Let us hear it," they said. "You may see it," said he. "It is this." And he drew forth the Arkenstone, and threw away the wrapping. The Elvenking himself, whose eyes were used to things of wonder and beauty, stood up in amazement. Even Bard gazed, marveling at it in silence. It was as if a globe had been filled with moonlight, and hung before them in a net woven of the glint of frosty stars. "This is the Arkenstone of Thrain," said Bilbo. "The heart of the mountain, and it is also the heart of Thorin. He values it above a river of gold. I give it to you. It will aid you in your bargaining." Then Bilbo, not without a shudder, not without a glance of longing, handed the marvelous stone to Bard, and he held it in his hand as though dazed.
Wow.
What a moment.
That is a moment, and it was really hard for me to give that to you.
Well, thank you.
I wanted that one. What a just
You know how much I love all this the star stuff and the
the
moonlight
description.
stuff, so
That's
I
exactly why
appreciate
I
that.
did the moon and stars thing. Like, well, there you go. That's a Sean passage right there.
I even love Bilbo's immediate response, when
dear
Bard asks him
Bard.
he's like, "I never met such suspicious folk." It's like,
Oh, I like it. Don't be so hasty. Obviously, you can't help but think of
Yeah,
Treebeard there.
right.
Hasty.
I just can see Bilbo just kind of clutching his pearls, like, "Oh dear me, no,"
And he's setting up a false dichotomy there. Like, are you betraying your friends or are you threatening us?
Right.
How about choice C, none of the above?
Right.
Yeah. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, suspicious folk. I mean, again, reminding us that even out here, away from the horde, the dragon sickness is a little bit contagious still, even if it's not quite as strong. But
That's true.
what beauty in this stone!
This is such a fantastic description.
It really is, and it just goes right along, hand in hand with the one we got when Bilbo first found it.
Yeah.
But I love this idea of moonlight hung in a globe.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
It's kind of a complex and multi-tiered passage, The
It
globes
is.
filled with moonlight hung before them in a net woven of the glint of frosty stars.
That's true. I don't want to diagram this sentence. That's for sure.
Yeah. It's a very complex passage. It's got layers like an onion. But you
Or
get the idea.
Parfait. Parfait's got layers.
Come on, Shrek. But you get the idea of this is a complex object. You get the idea of layers within layers of light and color, and
Like you would look into it and you would see the three-dimensionality of the light inside, the depth.
yeah, you see depth, and as you keep on looking, your eyes kind of go deeper and deeper. And I think Tolkien does that with just one sentence of description. He manages to convey that.
He
So
really
cool.
does. And then he conveys the value of it. It's not just the heart of the mountain, it's the heart of Thorin.
Yeah.
But that last sentence that Bilbo...
Not without a shudder.
Not without a
glance of
shudder.
longing.
Yeah.
Talk about the value. Yeah. Even Bilbo, who is, as you said, largely immune from the dragon sickness, even he is. It's kind of breaking his heart to hand this over.
It really is. I mean, remember, he said he would choose this even if the dwarves took all the rest.
Yeah.
This was the beauty of this thing just drew him. And, even when he reached for it because of the enchantment of the stone itself.
Right. Yeah.
Beautiful moment. Oh, and one last reminder, by the way, Bard held it in his hand as though dazed. Notice the lack of burning flesh on his hand. I just want to point that out for those who believe it. The Arkenstone is a Silmaril.
Might be a Silmaril, yeah.
It is clearly not. We talked about that before, that it kind of, that certainly Tolkien played with that idea, that
Inspired by his own idea.
inspired by his own concept of Silmaril, and certainly the Arkenstone, the history of that word and all that.
The holy stones, the sacred stones, I think it means.
Yeah, the sacred stone. But it's not a Silmaril as we know them, published in the 1977 volume, because
exactly. And
Bard's
I
hand's
think
still
that's
intact.
the key is if he had more time, if he had time to reconcile these two things and change the nature of the Silmarils and the Silmarillion, maybe it would have ended up one.
Maybe
We don't
maybe
know.
it would have been.
But
with
as the
it
text we
stands,
have of the Silmarillion, it cannot be, because this this defies the rules of the Silmarils. As
Along with what we talked about before, being
Right.
the gem cutting and all of that with the dwarves. And,
Right.
yeah. I'm going to go ahead and pick up right after that. But how is it yours to give? He asked at last, with an effort. Oh, well, said the Hobbit uncomfortably. It isn't exactly, but well, I am willing to let it stand against all my claim, don't you know? I may be a burglar, or so they say. Personally, I never really felt like one. But I am an honest one, I hope, more or less. Anyway, I'm going back now, and the dwarves can do what they like to me. I hope you will find it useful. The Elvenking looked at Bilbo with a new wonder. Bilbo Baggins, he said, you are more worthy to wear the armor of elf princes than many that have looked more comely in it. But I wonder if Thorin Oakenshield will see it so. I have more knowledge of dwarves in general than you have, perhaps. I advise you to remain with us, and here you shall be honoured and thrice welcome. Well, thank you very much, I am sure, said Bilbo with a bow. But I don't think I ought to leave my friends like this, after all we've gone through together. And I promised to wake old Bomber at midnight, too. Really, I must be going, and quickly. Boy, does that passage speak of Bilbo's character?
So much about Bilbo's integrity and character.
Yeah. So much there. I mean, first off, he's flat out surrendering any right to any reward whatsoever for his entire adventure. All of this has now been done for free. I am willing to let this stand against all my claim. Wow.
Just because this is the right thing to do.
Yeah, because he realizes this may be the only way that peace is possible.
Right. Yeah.
You know, we were just talking about how everybody was so concerned about their rights. You know, even Bard concerned about what right he has to the claim.
That's a good catch. Yeah.
Bilbo's
is
given
the
up.
only one.
Yeah.
Bilbo's acting completely selflessly here.
Totally
He's willing
selfless.
to give up any stake in this. Yeah.
Yeah. His rights, he doesn't care about what he has the right to anymore.
Yeah.
He wants what is right, not his own
Yeah.
rights. And that, I mean, I'm going to say this, that may be the only cure for dragon sickness, really. I mean, Bilbo's the only one who doesn't seem to be sucked into that to one degree or another.
Man, that's a really good catch. That's really, wow.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. What do we say? Broken clock twice a day, blind squirrel?
Yeah, no, that's
I mean,
that is a good one.
The whole thing about just stop that process of looking out for number one.
Yeah.
You know?
And what's the right thing to do? He's the only one thinking about that.
Yeah, man, such a moment. And then, like you said, the integrity, the fact that he's not going to leave them. He may be doing this terrible thing, and he realizes the danger.
He realizes the danger, and he knows he knows how they will view it. But he doesn't see this as a betrayal. He still sees them as his friends.
Yes,
and
he has
remains
to go back
loyal to them.
They are. That's right.
Yeah.
After all we have gone through together, I cannot leave them.
Yeah.
He's right, but wow, that's a gutsy move because the Elven King's right. You're taking a big risk going back there.
Yeah.
Big risk.
Although I got to say, backhanded compliment from the Elven King. I mean,
yeah, just a little
more worthy to wear it than many have looked more comely in it. I mean,
in other words, you look terrible.
You look terrible, but like, oh, thank you so much, Elven King.
Yeah,
such a nice guy.
Well, you know, he is very fashion conscious, so
at least he doesn't call him the stunted person. Because he is an elf. They do that.
He is. That's true. They do. The hairy-footed ones. Oh goodness. Yeah. Just what an incredible moment. The decision for him to go back really does also answer Bard's earlier question, doesn't it? About are you betraying your friends?
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
He absolutely is not.
No. By going back, he's showing. No, I'm not.
Yeah. Staying here would be betrayal, but he's going to return.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is absolutely right.
Yeah. You know, there's an interesting quote from Corey Olson that I think is really key here.
Yeah.
In regards to this idea of Bilbo being an honest burglar, as he says, I never really felt like one, but I am an honest one, I hope.
Boy, lots of qualifications in that sentence, though, huh?
Yeah,
you look at that. I never felt like one.
I never really felt like one, but I am an honest one.
I hope.
More or less. Yeah.
I mean, wow. That's just...
I'm sort of honest.
Are you hedging your bets there,
yeah.
Bilbo? But anyway, sorry about that.
No, I think there's something to that. I think he probably doesn't feel that honest right now.
No.
With
No,
good
he
reason.
doesn't.
He's not being honest right now. He just lied to Bombur. He is betraying Thorin, and he's almost maybe trying to convince himself a little bit that he's
I think
an
you're
honest
right.
guy.
I think you're absolutely right. He's trying to tell himself here, I'm doing the right thing. And he is.
Yeah, exactly. He totally is. I mean, as we've discussed.
As we'll see in just a moment. But not before you have that Olsen quote.
There's a really cool Olsen quote here, and it's kind of a long one, so bear with me. He says, "In a strange paradox, Bilbo's career as a burglar culminates not in stealing treasure, but in giving it away. Now at last we can see why the dwarves needed a burglar in their company. When it actually came to it, a burglar was not all that much help in obtaining their treasure. A bowman was what they really needed for that. Bilbo was quite handy to have around at many points on their journey, but the one task he turned out to be uniquely qualified for was connected not with the recovery of their treasure, but with the recovery of themselves. Bard slays the dragon, but it is little Bilbo who works to make the prophecies of peace and prosperity come true."
Wow.
Standing at the end of Bilbo's career arc, we can see a remarkable thing. As Bilbo has been changed by his experiences, he has come to fit more and more neatly the burglar label that Gandalf so improbably placed on him in Chapter 1. In the process, however, he has not been fundamentally changed. Rather, he has transformed the role of burglar itself to fit the values of his Baggins world, taking the job in a quite unexpected direction. The description honest burglar sounds like an oxymoron, but it fits Bilbo. An honest burglar may be something new, but then so is a respectable Baggins wearing elvish armor, or a thief sneaking out by night in order to give away the wealth of nations.
Wow. And once again, Corey says it better than we do. But,
Yeah, I know. That's why I read as much as I did.
Well,
All I
it
can
helps
think
when
of
you've
is
got an editor and plenty of time to write it, and you're not doing it, while you're just chatting behind a microphone.
right, right. Because all I can think of is, well, he can be a burglar all he wants as long as he's not an encyclopedia salesman.
That's a good point. Oh, man.
That's like deep Monty Python.
That really is.
Reference right there. There might be 6 people out there who get that one.
Maybe 7, but you're right. Yeah, I actually watched that one not too long ago. That was.
Did you?
That was very funny.
Burglar, madam. Burglar. You're not an encyclopedia salesman, are you?
No. Just a burglar.
Just burglar. Just coming to steal some things and leave. You promise
You're
no
not gonna try to
encyclopedias?
sell me an encyclopedia? All right. Wow, man. Good stuff. There was one last thing before I go on to the closing passage. I was about to move on to that, but there was something else that made me think of kind of Bilbo's moment here. We've talked about his big moments, and one of his big moments, of course, was Chapter 5.
Right, yeah.
The moment where he chose to jump over Gollum instead of killing him when he could have.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, he made a choice to put empathy for others above his own self-interest and even above his own safety. And here he does the same. And this time he does it publicly in front of other people, whereas that choice was all by himself.
Right.
And it just speaks, again, so much to the character of Bilbo, to that integrity, as you mentioned, and to just his decency.
Yeah.
And in a situation where that's really difficult. I just, again, kudos to Bilbo for this. But, just good stuff.
Yeah. Truly, just like you said, doing the right thing. He is, and that's why I love Olsen's, comment about he's saving the dwarves.
I love that. That's a great point.
Saving their souls a little bit.
He really is. He's giving them a chance to make this right, and hopefully this will break the dragon. The dragon curse, the dragon spell, the dragon sickness. For a moment, I could not remember the word for the life of me. Anyway,
I thought you were just being poetic.
I was actually just being forgetful. But I'll claim
your usual eloquence.
Well, when in doubt, just bust out a thesaurus in my brain, and I'll start using those other words. I'm going to go ahead and read the last passage of the chapter, and then we'll discuss that briefly as well.
All right.
So, as he's heading back, he runs into somebody, and we talked about how he's going to run into an old friend.
Mm-hmm.
"Well done, Mr. Baggins," he said, clapping Bilbo on the back. "There is always more about you than anyone expects." It was Gandalf. For the first time for many a day, Bilbo was really delighted. But there was no time for all the questions that he immediately wished to ask. "All in good time," said Gandalf. Things are drawing towards the end now, unless I am mistaken. There is an unpleasant time just in front of you, but keep your heart up. You may come through all right. There is news brewing that even the ravens have not heard. Good night." Puzzled but cheered, Bilbo hurried on. He was guided to a safe ford and set across dry, and then he said farewell to the elves and climbed carefully back towards the gate. Great weariness began to come over him, but it was well before midnight when he clambered up the rope again. It was still where he had left it. He untied it and hid it, and then he sat down on the wall and wondered anxiously what would happen next. At midnight he woke up Bomber and then in turn rolled himself up in his corner without listening to the old dwarf's thanks, which he felt he had hardly earned. He was soon fast asleep, forgetting all his worries till the morning. As a matter of fact, he was dreaming of eggs and bacon. Man, I just love that.
That Baggins moment at the end there, yeah.
Total Baggins moment, and it tells me he is totally at peace with the decision he made. Yeah. Totally at peace.
Yeah.
To be able
Even though
to
that comes
not
right
stress.
on the heels.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying to not stress over what he did, and you'd think that would keep you awake all night.
Right. But no, he's forgotten his worries. He feels more comfortable than he has.
Totally at peace. He's able to
time.
have a good night's rest with wonderful dreams because he's done the right thing.
Yeah. And he knows, and I like that it comes on the heels of without listening to the old dwarf's thanks, which he felt he had hardly earned. You know, he knows he didn't really earn Bomber's thanks, but he still knows he did the right thing.
Yeah, you're right.
He knows he did the right thing despite what the dwarves would have wanted him to do.
Right. Well,
and that's
he
why
did,
he feels truly content.
Yeah, he may feel guilty about lying to Bomber.
Sure, yeah.
But he knows that in this case, the ends justify the means. In this case, it was, and so while he feels badly enough that he really doesn't want to take those thanks, he does feel well enough to sleep well, and to fast asleep and to be dreaming of eggs and bacon. There's the Baggins homey moment. I love it.
Yep, I love it.
How often do I dream of eggs and bacon? Not as often as I would like, is what I would say.
No, but then again, you've got eggs and bacon probably more readily to hand than Bilbo does. So
well, yeah, but
you could probably more easily just wake up and eat eggs and bacon.
Well, maybe. Gandalf is back.
Yay!
I love it. Yay!
And like Bilbo, we all have so many questions.
Hour of need. No,
right.
I have come back at the turning of the tide. Yeah, and as always, Gandalf, oh, well, great. Now I've got some questions. You can answer them because you're Gandalf, right?
Right.
He's like, no, we'll talk about it
later.
No.
We've got
no time for that. No time for that either. I love this. Even Gandalf really seems a bit surprised, doesn't he? Because when he says there's more about you than anyone expects, he's an anyone.
He's including himself in that. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. Even he had high expectations for Bilbo, but even he didn't expect quite this. Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
And I love his "you may come through all right." There's an unpleasant time. You may come through all right.
You may come through all right.
No
50-50
guarantees.
at best.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
But there is hope.
There's always hope. And Gandalf's there to remind you of that. I mean, that's really one of his tasks throughout the entire Legendarium.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So, man, what a moment. You know, it made me think, I got to say, this last bit about forgetting his worries and dreaming of eggs and bacon. I can't help but compare this with Thorin's obsession with treasure, right? For him, the Arkenstone is worth a river of gold. For Bilbo, home is worth a river of gold.
I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, that's what holds his value. That's where his heart is. Yeah. And that's why he's willing to make such a big, bold move.
Yeah.
To enable that to happen.
And sacrifice his share of the treasure. Yeah. Sacrifice the respect of his friends.
The respect and friendship.
And the friendship of his friends that he's spent all this time building up. Yeah.
And maybe home even his well-being. I mean, he
knows.
No
kidding, once they find out.
Yeah.
And we will see that soon.
Even that alone would keep me up at night. Even if I knew I did the right thing, I'd still be worried about that, but not Bilbo.
Knowing that you angered a bunch of dragon-sick dwarves, yeah.
Who until recently were entirely unarmed, but now are in a horde
quite heavily armed
with, the great spears of King Bloodorthan, if nothing else.
Yeah, yep.
Well,
indeed.
Now, it may not rank up there with pocketing the Arkenstone, but thanks to modern technology, we know that a few of you, not all of you thankfully, but some of you tune out for a few minutes after our chapter discussions end. Please don't. We have mixed things up. We know that well, we've trimmed the fat, as it were, at least for a while.
Yeah.
And, we're not going to ask you for anything. So even though this does wrap up the text for the day, we're asking you to please stick around. We have some really good stuff coming up in Barliman's bag.
Yeah, and if you skip ahead, you might miss that. But first, we want to remind you that our live appearance at Mythmoot 5 is fast approaching.
That's right. It's hard to believe that in just a little over a month, we're going to be special guests at Mythmoot 5, taking place June 21st to 24th, 2018, at the beautiful National Conference Center in Leesburg, Virginia.
Now, Mythmoot is a combination literary conference and fan convention sponsored by Signum University. It's even more than that, but it's primarily about enjoying one another's company while we celebrate and engage with these stories that we love.
Boy, it's going to be fun. And for us, it's also about doing a live episode broadcast from the main room with no other events going on in our time slot.
We don't like making things easy for ourselves.
Nope, apparently not.
But this one is absolutely going to be worth it because we're going to be joined by some special guests. We're going to have John Garth, Corey Olson, Douglas Anderson, and Mark Ockrand on the show.
Man, we set the bar high. We will be airing that show live on Facebook at the time of the event because, again, live doesn't make things any harder.
No.
He lied. So that'll be airing Saturday, June 23rd at 1 o'clock Eastern Time on our Facebook page. But we'll also put it up on the podcast feed as a regular episode, hopefully on time, even though that might mean I have to stay up through the night instead of enjoying some fellowship with our fellow, what did we decide on, Mythmooters?
I like Mythmooters, yeah.
Mythmooters, yeah.
No, we don't want you doing that, Alan. I have to say, folks, if that episode is delayed that weekend, please cut us some slack. Cut Alan some slack mostly because he's the one who has to do most of the post.
Thank you.
But we expect to be having a great time there with some wonderful people, some brilliant people. And I don't want Alan, I don't want any of us feeling like we've got to stay in Saturday night to edit audio.
I appreciate that. Well, on time or a day late, the timing's still working out well for us because that's going to be happening right after we wrap up The Hobbit and just as we're starting to get ready for Season 3.
That's right. So if you want a chance to come see us live, go find out more and register by visiting tinyurl.com/mythmootv, as in Mythmoot 5, before the deadline of May 31st.
Coming up soon. Now, I said we weren't going to ask you for anything, and that is still true. You know where we stand on our goals. You can see that at patreon.com/prancingponypod, and that's all we're going to say about that.
But of course, we do want to give a very special shout out to our patrons at the Kierdance contribution tier. That's DeMay in Alaska, James in Virginia, Tamsin in Minnesota, Don in Vancouver Island, and Emily in Texas. Thank you all so much.
Indeed. Well, Sean, why don't we go ahead and get on with Barliman's bag? I'm going to go ahead and take the question that we've got tonight. Well, I'm not going to say it's a long question, but it's a long answer. So I'll just give us the question and we'll go from there. It comes to us from Shay in Israel. He wrote in asking, I have a fun question in regards to D&D classes. I'm thinking like graduate level classes, freshman level classes. Wait.
D&D 101.
D&D 101, there you go.
Which is probably what we're about to get into.
I don't know. Our answer might wander more into graduate level territory, certainly, at least upperclassmen.
Yeah.
If we assume that Gandalf's class is wizard, he probably has a spell book. What spells does Gandalf have in his spell book? Please include cantrips. Those are minor spells that he's mastered so well that he can cast them at any time. He doesn't have to have them prepared. And regular spells from level 1 through 9. Or if Gandalf's not a wizard, what is your opinion of the class that he would be? And another question, what do you think is the D&D character level of Gandalf the Grey and Gandalf the White? Oh, man.
This is such an awesome question,
It really
Shay.
is fun.
I have to thank you for that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I know both Alan and I have said many times on the podcast that Gandalf isn't that kind of wizard. And I know that answer still stands, but this question is just too fun to pass on that.
Absolutely.
So I do want to answer it. I want to give it a good answer. But I have to admit that although I used to be a big D&D player, and we're talking many, many years ago.
Many.
And I do plan to play again when my kids are old enough. I have been out for quite some time. I'm not sure I have a good answer for this one. What about you, Alan?
Yeah, sadly, I'm the same way. I mean, I played a lot back in 3rd edition, but that was a long time ago.
I think you're more recent than me. I'm not sure I've played since 2nd edition. So.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I mean, I think most of my experience was in second edition, but I played some in third, and I think I might have even done one session in that 3.5 that they did
Okay,
for a
yeah.
while. But that, again, even that was probably, 15 years ago. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, I can barely remember what I had for lunch last Thursday, so I'm probably going to struggle on this one.
Yeah.
But I think we might have a solution to come up with.
Yeah,
this,
I was
don't
going
we?
to say, Shay, neither Alan or I is D&D savvy enough to answer your question, but fortunately, we know someone who is. So
There you
we're going
go.
to use a lifeline on this one. One of our listeners, Jeff LaSala, is a writer, a role player, and a self-proclaimed happy member of the Fellowship of the Podcast. And he's written D&D role-playing material. He's written a Scribe Award-nominated D&D novel.
Yes, he has.
He also writes articles about Tolkien regularly for Tor.com. And that includes the ongoing Silmarillion primer, which I got to say is informative and hilarious.
It really is.
So
Laugh out loud moments for sure.
truly, yeah. So in other words, Jeff has exactly the credentials we need to answer this question.
Precisely.
So I sent this to him, and we actually got a very nice, complete response that I will probably paraphrase here.
Well, yeah, we're going to paraphrase this for
We're
sure.
going to have
'cause
to paraphrase here.
how many pages
Yeah.
was the original response?
It was a few pages. Yeah.
It was multiple
He
pages.
gave us a wonderful 5-page response, and
was
I think
beautiful.
I'd like to post that on our website. But
Oh, yeah,
I'll
we definitely should.
I'll give
For
some
the-
of the highlights here.
For the gamers among us, you'll want to read the whole thing.
Yes, exactly. But I'll just give some of the highlights here.
Yeah.
He actually started out with the same caveat that I would have given. He said, basically Tolkien's Legendarium isn't really all that compatible with, the D&D rules and the mechanics and world assumptions and cosmologies, even though obviously we know D&D was inspired by Tolkien
Oh, yeah.
and other things. But there's a compatibility issue there. And right off the bat, we get a little problem with, like, what race is Gandalf?
That's true. That's a
Gandalf
good
is a
thing.
Maya. He's not a human, but since the Unfinished Tales tells us that the Astari were clad in bodies as of men, and that they were subject to the fears and pains and weariness of earth, able to hunger and thirst and be slain, basically,
Yeah.
we're thinking we can treat him as a human for all intents and purposes, even though he's pretty much ageless.
Yeah, I would concur. Definitely well said. But, if we do agree to treat Gandalf as a human wizard, Jeff would put Gandalf the Grey at 17th level. That's the lowest level that you have to be in order to access 9th level spells, which is still super freaking powerful, but
Right.
he still has to keep most of that under wraps. Now, Jeff's next comment is fantastic. He says, throughout The Lord of the Rings, Gandalf is mostly just walking, running, or riding around, giving people advice and inspiring them to action. This is Gandalf's style, nudging and convincing and steering the good guys together. His wisdom is his wizardry, only when absolutely needed do his supernatural powers kick in. So that's where it would be good for us to remember that the Astari were forbidden to reveal themselves in forms of majesty or to seek to rule the wills of men and elves by open displays of power. So Gandalf wouldn't go around slinging mighty spells in front of even Aragorn, one of his wisest and best friends. But despite that, Jeff does give us an assortment of spells that Gandalf might keep at the ready just in case. Starting with 5 cantrips, those are those minor spells we talked about that he can just do them over and over again and at will, along with 28 other spells varying from levels 1 through 9,
It's fantastic stuff.
which is
And-
why we can't read them all.
Yeah, no, we can't. I truly wish I could, but I'll just read
They'll
a
be
few.
on the
and-
website. They'll be in our show notes
Yeah.
for sure.
I'll share some of my favorites. So
Yeah.
we'll start with the cantrips, including Firebolt,
Oh, yeah.
for when he needs to blast some wolves at the base of 5 fir trees. Minor Illusion, to entertain hobbits at parties. Mm-hmm. Moving on to some of the other spells, let's see. Let's go to second level. Pyrotechnics, to aid in his
yeah.
fireworks or to scare away wolves and wargs.
Sure.
Or Shatter, to break a traitorous wizard's staff.
Nice. Well done, Jeff.
At the 5th level, Jeff has given him Animate Objects to help him inspel diamond studs that fasten and unfasten themselves.
Oh, nicely done. That's even better.
That's a great one. He's also given him Cone of Cold, which he says, I bet a certain Balrog gets a full blast of in the face.
Probably. That makes sense.
6th level, he's got Flesh to Stone for when there's no time to wait for dawn to defeat some trolls. 8th level, Power Word Stun to avoid having to bandy crooked words with Grima Wormtongue. I think that's my personal
That's
favorite.
awesome. I love it.
That's my favorite. And then 9th level Foresight for a quick peek back at the music of the Ainur when he needs it.
Oh, I love that. That is quite a sampling of the spell book right there.
Yeah.
That's just phenomenal. I can't wait to have the rest
Fantastic
of those
stuff.
available
Yeah.
for everybody. They really are a fun read. As for the level up from Gandalf the Grey to Gandalf the White, Jeff actually, and I think he's totally right here, he believes that Gandalf's done more than just level up. He goes so far as to say that Gandalf has gained levels in a different class. He's a multi-class character now. He's picked up some levels of cleric and therefore gained some divine magic when he strayed out of thought and time and came back again. So now he's got the channel divinity ability, and turn dead would be especially useful against the Nazgul. I mean, really,
Quite
useful. Cleric spells like Greater Restoration sure would help Theoden King shake off Saruman's influence. And Commune could help Gandalf check in with his Valar superiors for some basic yes or no advice. I love that.
Quite true.
Yeah.
Finally, Jeff says that his strength, dexterity, and constitution are all as a normal man's, but he's given to sudden bursts of great strength, speed, and stamina. His intelligence, wisdom, and charisma would be exceedingly high, especially wisdom.
Oh, yeah.
For he spent much time in the company of Nienna.
Yeah, they don't. That's because they don't have a stat for crying. I'm just because anybody who spent
I was
time
going
in
to
the
say
company of
pity
Nienna-
or
Yeah.
sympathy, you know.
Yeah.
What's your sympathy score?
Well, Gandalf's going to be quite high. That's true.
Very much so, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. That his strength, dex, con, all as a normal man. I can buy that.
With bursts, you know, with bursts
Sure.
every once in a while, sort of belying his real nature there.
Yeah.
But yeah, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma off the charts.
Totally off the charts. Yeah, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Certainly intelligence and wisdom. Yeah, even charisma, just in a different way.
I think charisma. Yeah, everybody loves him.
Everybody does. That's
Except
true.
for Denethor
Well, yeah, and Saruman.
and Saruman. Anyway, it was fantastic stuff from Jeff.
Oh, yeah.
There was a lot more, including some closing thoughts on his ring, Narya.
Ah, yes.
That I don't know. Maybe I'll bring those out at a later date. Anyway, Shay, I told you we went to the right place for the answer, and I hope that Jeff's answer pleases you as much as it impresses me.
Which it definitely
Truly
did.
amazing.
I mean,
Definitely.
this actually is right up there with Tom's masterful essay on Balrog wings.
Oh yes.
So
Very
anyway,
much so.
and actually probably required a little bit more homework. Just
Quite
for
a
those
bit
of you
of
who haven't
homework.
read that article.
Certainly.
Anyway, for those of you who haven't read Jeff's Silmarillion primer over at Tor.com, you should. Go check it. I mean, seriously, you should. Listen to our first season, but also read this. Go check it out at tor.com/series/the-Silmarillion-primer. Don't worry, we're going to put a link to that in our show
We'll put a link
notes.
to that up. Yeah.
Thank you so much to Shay for his question and to Jeff for his answer. And folks, that nearly wraps it up for another episode of the Prancing Pony Podcast. As always, thank you very much for joining us. We look forward to having you join us again next time when we get to chapter 17 of The Hobbit.
I can't believe there are only 3 chapters left, but
I know.
that's where we are.
It's a much shorter book. We were looking
It
at
is.
the pace we've been moving through, and we really haven't increased our pace that much. I think we went from about 7.5 or 8 pages per episode on our Silmarillion show. I think we're maybe at 10 pages here.
Maybe at 9 or so, yeah.
Yeah, it's just not that much faster a pace, but it's just a shorter book. But yeah, it's almost over.
It's
Can't
amazing.
believe it.
It's amazing how much we found to talk about. I really have
It
to
really
say this.
is.
There's so much more there than I
Yeah,
thought. But
I think that's one of the eye-opening things. I can't wait for our retrospective on that because I think this has been my most interesting read of The Hobbit for sure.
yeah,
And I've been
definitely.
reading it for many decades now, actually. So. Well, in the meantime, while you're waiting for Chapter 17 to drop, we invite you to check out the official library tab on our website, theprancingponypodcast.com. We've got links to everything from inexpensive paperbacks to some really good stuff for your Tolkien collection, and you probably want to get that paperback edition of Lord of the Rings ready so that you can start
Yes.
taking notes when we hit Season 3.
That's right. And if you also wouldn't mind heading over to iTunes for us and leaving a review, we'd be grateful. Those reviews help us get more visibility in iTunes, and that translates to a bigger and more exciting community of Tolkien lovers.
And thank you to those of you who have, by the way. Not only do we still read every one of them, but we also are featuring one a week on our social media networks on #ThankfulThursdays. So make sure you never miss an episode of the Prancing Pony Podcast by subscribing to the show through iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.
And we want to thank all of you who've become part of our social media family. We set out to start a Tolkien conversation that everyone could be a part of, and that's why we have our online common room on Facebook at the Prancing Pony Podcast, on Twitter at Prancing Pony Pod, and on Instagram at Prancing Pony Pod.
And one last thing, as always, don't forget to send your thoughts, comments, home remedies for a stiff dwarf neck to Barliman at theprancingponypodcast.com. We'll try to get him into our next episode, or a future episode at least. Well, an hour 35 or so, still far too short a time to spend among such excellent and admirable listeners. But until next time.
Farewell, friends.